The Ohio State Buckeyes are the defending national champs. Are they going to get some more help for Jeremiah Smith after losing so many NFL players? And they did get a couple big-time commitments on the offensive line.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Head over to 5hourenergy.com to choose from over 15 flavors. Need one now? Go find one at your local grocery store or convenience store. They're anywhere you are. 5 Hour Energy. We're going to be talking all things Ohio State Buckeyes, the defending national champions. They got Jeremiah Smith for at least 2 more years. Probably that's it. But they need to make sure they utilize him the best they can. And to do it, are they going to find some portal players? We're going to be talking about that. 2 commitments that the Buckeyes got. And of course, to start off, we're going to talk about the quarterback position. Who's going to win the battle? And to help me do all of that, my guy Jay Stevens from Locked On Buckeyes. Mr. Stevens, how are you?
Doing well, Brian. It's spring and around everywhere in the country, and that means football. It's football, football, football. I'm excited for spring practice, and I'm just hoping Ryan Day names a starting quarterback before the fall, because he doesn't need to wait that long. We all know who the starting quarterback is going to be.
I'll go ahead and give you 3-1 on that. I got any takers over there, Jay?
We
no
all know
chance.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's look, coaches hate doing anything other than being conservative with the media. They're always paranoid. Ryan Day's a paranoid guy too. Mm-hmm. And Julian Sayin's going to win the job, but he's trying to keep as many guys on the roster as he can. It's the same problem every coach has. You can only play one quarterback. And I think it's going to be Sayin, but prove me wrong. But they are going to go through spring, and if anybody gets hurt, if there anything just goes sideways, that's why you have spring ball. So I'm saying Julian Sayin. Have you heard anything else? Is there any chance? Who would be the most likely contender? Then we'll talk about our guy, Jeremiah Smith.
No, I haven't heard anybody else. It's still Julian Sayin is a front runner right now to win the title of QB1. Lincoln Kienholz is the other guy that he's competing with, at least as close as any other guy in the room. Tavius St. Clair is getting reps with the ones at times during spring ball, but it's still a battle between Kienholz and Sayin. Sayin's a better processor. You watched him. You know more about him on when you were covering him in high school and the recruiting trail there. But he processes at a great level. He has a quick release. They're working on all the little details that are very big on the football field right now during spring practice. He didn't make sure he has the arm strength and he gets stronger. He still looks kind of small to me, but he's 19 years old. A lot of 19-year-old kids are pretty small. And so that's the thing I have to remind myself with Sayin is Will Howard was a fifth-year guy, so he had a lot of the 21, 22-year-old muscle that he had at the end of his collegiate career. Well, Sayin's just now about to add some of that mass this offseason, so I expect Sayin to gain some weight this offseason leading into a year where he's expected to lead the Buckeyes offense in a year where it might look a little bit different than it did a year ago with a new play caller, and a lot of those guys that were stars last year are now about to go to the NFL.
Yeah, I think the play calling and all that matters. You lose a legendary coach as your coordinator, he goes to the National Football League. Chip Kelly did his thing, one and done, gets a ring. Okay, can't really fold him. No. Just be happy with what you got out of that. You can't do any better. So I'm curious to see if they let Julian throw it around or what they're going to do. And before I came on with you, I went, okay, let's check the depth chart. Let's make sure I got everything in order. They add a few players here and there, but it's really based on what, of course, these depth charts are subjective. It's not like Ryan Day's handing these out. I found one that's projected. In Ohio State at running back, you don't lose one, you lose 2 guys. Mm-hmm. That was my biggest question. Are they going to get anything there that's going to make a difference? And they went out and get a guy that has 30 career touchdowns in college. That's pretty good.
Yes.
C.J. Donaldson Jr. comes in from West Virginia. He's a South Florida kid, played at Gopher Prep in Miami. 30 touchdowns for the Mountaineers. Big body guy, power player. And you got James Peoples behind him. Anthony Rogers, a guy that was star in the Under Armour All-American game as a freshman, might have a chance to play some. But Do you think they need to add somebody there, maybe another receiver, a tight end? What do they need to add? Because, again, you're only going to get Jeremiah for 2 more years. So how do you help him? Because they're going to double and triple him now. You got to find weapons. What's your take?
I think the Buckeyes on the offensive side of the ball need to still try to go and get a running back from the portal, at least one more, and also a quarterback. My issue with those two positions, while they have a lot of talented players in those rooms, there's very little experience. In the quarterback room, nobody has experience. Nobody's ever started a game. So even if Sayin is a guy and they keep the other two quarterbacks into the season, who's going to be the veteran leader in that room? They don't have one. You go out there and get a portal guy, maybe a 4th or 5th year guy, someone that's trying to win a national championship and realizes he's not going to play a lot of ball. So go out there and get that guy that's been a veteran. You can do that. Running back, you have C.J. Donaldson, like you mentioned, but he's the only leader in that room. You need to get guys that are depth pieces in both of those rooms. Now, offensive line's one where they've already gone out and got a couple guys, and Ethan Ananwan, Phillip Daniels, one's from Rice, the other one played at Minnesota. They're supposed to start at both tackle spots. But outside of those two guys, there really isn't much depth at tackle. You may have to move a guard to tackle like we saw the Buckeyes do a year ago when Simmons and then the backup left tackle both went down for the year due to injury. So I think tackle's another one on the offensive side of the ball that might be a need in the spring portal. But you're bringing a guy in knowing he's not going to play. And a lot of guys go into the spring portal because they want to play now. And so it's weird because I think there's still some needs there. I just don't know how aggressive the Buckeyes are going to be in that spring portal window. They want to kind of ride with their culture and ride with the guys that are currently on the roster. I see positives to that, but I also see the other side where that could lead to disaster if one guy gets hurt or another guy gets hurt. What's going to happen? It could be like it was last year where the offensive line was able to figure some things out late in the year going into the playoffs. It could be a disaster where the Buckeyes lose games because they don't have the depth at some key positions on offense.
Yeah, last year they caught fire at the end, obviously. Their offense was tremendous. But they overcame injuries on the O-line, and it doesn't get talked about enough. That was the most important piece to that because Jeremiah is not catching any passes if the quarterback's on his rear end. So hats off to all those guys that helped them win. But now you're looking at a situation. You went and got 2 tackles already. That's the good news. But it's the opposite. We don't normally say, well, Ohio State needs more skill talent. When was the last time we said that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I get the whole point about quarterback. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's almost as big a pipe dream. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But they play Texas right out of the gate. So it's like that defense of theirs is not going to be friendly. So you better be ready. And then on the other side of that, like, again, I like the running back they brought in from West Virginia. He's a good player. He had 40 touchdowns.
Brian, he's down 18 pounds since he got on campus.
Okay, so good for him.
Yeah.
Good for CJ. But that's one guy. What if he tweaks his ankle 2 weeks before the Texas game? Is James Peoples ready for 18 carries against the Longhorns?
Is Bo Jackson ready to back him up if Donaldson goes down? Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like, that's a lot to ask of, any freshman, sophomore running back going against Texas's offensive or defensive line. That's rough, bro. So I'm not so sure about that. Plus, what's the tight end situation? They lost a veteran tight end. There's a lot of little pieces like that it's just a continuity deal. So I agree with you. But my question is, A, what you said. Why would anybody want to come? They're not going to start.
No.
It's hard to get guys. And then B, because they know that you have deep pockets. Is Ohio State really willing to spend big this year? I'm leery of the answer. Yeah, you're shaking your head no. I don't think this is likely, but you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. You're not going to find a Jeremiah Smith in the portal. You're not right now. You're not going to ever. You're not going to find a Carnell Tate. You're not going to find a Brandon Ennis. You're not going to find a Julian Sayin. Like the guys that you may want to spend money, you want to get them in after already playing a year or two. They're not going to the portal. They've already cemented their spot on the roster and in the depth chart. You're not going to the portal for those guys. Ohio State got a tight end transfer from Purdue and Max Clare to pair along with Will Kaczmarek and then Bennett Christian. I think the tight end room has 3 strong, potentially 4 with Jelani Thurman. I don't see them really going to the portal to get a tight end. So I think Ohio State demands a lot from tight ends in the run blocking area. For a lot of guys that are going into the portal, they're not the best run blocking tight ends. And you have to do that well to get on the field at tight end. Even receiver. Brian Hartline is a guy that if you don't block as a receiver, you're not going to play, which is why Brendan Ennis played so much a year ago. While he didn't really get many passes thrown his way, was because he was an elite receiver that's a great blocker. And so I don't think they're going to be a big spender at all. We didn't even touch on the defense. I think they could get another guy on the edge. They can get another safety. But they're not going to spend for these guys. They're not going to. They're probably going to ride with the guys they got. And I'm not going to lie to you, Brian. They're really, really talented. But against Texas, against Penn State, I think they're still going to beat Penn State. Don't get me wrong. Like, that game may be closer than it should be.
Penn State has to beat Ohio State before I ever pick them to beat. That's under that point. I don't even know who's quarterback in 5 years. I'm picking the Buckeyes. Unless they've beaten them, I'm not doing it.
But let's go to the last game of the regular season against Michigan. Ohio State's lost 4 in a row. Yes, I am a Buckeye fan. I'm not going to lie about that. Am I still nervous about that game? Absolutely. Because Ryan Day has showed me in that game, even when he's more talented, he doesn't get the job done. So why should I believe that a team that's not as talented as a year ago is going to go into Ann Arbor and win? At least right now in the spring. My thought may be different going into that game. It could also be clouded by my bias of being a fan. I'm not going to lie to you, Brian. Like, sometimes that happens, but I got no questions about Ryan Day, the coach. Yeah, you won the national championship, but you still have not been the perfect coach and haven't fixed some of your issues.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. When we come back, I want to talk more about the portal, a couple things on the defensive side that they may want to shore up. And we're also going to talk about 2 players they got in the recruiting ranks here recently that are really good. That's next here on the Portal Podcast. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big cruise, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in extra bonus bets on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. One of my favorite things about the big basketball tournament this time of year is the Cinderella story. There's going to be somebody in the Sweet 16, even though it's all P4 teams, that's going to surprise. Who will it be and why? Maybe it's a player that gets hot from the three-point line, but that's why it's so much fun. So visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long. Jay, Ohio State's defense last year, especially up front, I think was a major difference maker. Now, they've got some good guys coming back, and I want you to talk about them a little bit. But here's my questions before you can answer these however and whenever you want. Do they need another piece up front, which is always expensive in the spring window? Defensive line in the portal is rough. And then secondarily, do they have a guy in the back end that you think that they can rely on if they're going against a team that has a legit number one receiver? And if they don't, what do they need to do to address those issues?
Let's go with the first question first. Do they need another piece on defense? My gut is very similar. Gut thought is very similar to the offensive tackle position is yes. It's not a guy that's going to start. It's all about the depth. You lose Lathan Ransom. You watched him quite a bit, and you've seen how he's gotten a lot better over the past couple of years. He was a thumper in the playoffs. Yeah. Caleb Downs is still there. So you already have a guy that's basically a coach on the field, but his running mate is gone. It's maybe Malik Hartford, maybe Jalen McClain. One of those guys will be the running mate with Caleb Downs. But like we talk about with the running backs and the quarterbacks, there's no experience outside of Caleb Downs in that room. So you got to try to figure out what you can do in the spring portal to get some depth at that position. I think corners run perfectly fine with what they got. You got Igman Olsen on one side. You got Jermaine Matthews Jr. on the other. You got Devin Sanchez coming in and Bryce West still there and Aaron Scott Jr. still there. I think that position is going to be fine. I would love to see one more linebacker as a depth piece. an edge rusher as a depth piece. I know they got the kid from Idaho, but the stuff I'm saying, I know it's not going to happen. What needs to happen, Brian? It's not going to happen.
You just don't think they're going to spend enough and they'll get outbid, or do you think it's more that, okay, I know I'm not going to play, or at least not start?
Probably the not start. I believe they have the funds to go out and get a guy in the spring portal if he's there and if he's ready to come out and entertain Ohio State. I'm not worried about the funds at Ohio State at all. They were one of the top spinners a year ago, and they don't have the top end talent that demands the high dollar in the NIL. So I think the funds are there. I think the guys you want are guys that want to start, and they're not going to start at Ohio State. You're not coming into the spring. You're not going to enter the portal in the spring and come to Ohio State and start a few months later. That's not how Ryan Day works. That's not him at all. The other question on the back end, someone that can kind of be one-on-one against another team's best receiver. My gut right now is Jermaine Matthews Jr. over Igbenogson, who's played more, played in the SEC and the Big Ten. I think Matthews Jr. has a dog in him. My only thing with him is you didn't see it, even in a backup role last year, you didn't see it as consistent as you wanted to. So how is he going to be this year? Is he going to be able to be as consistent as needed? I don't know. I don't have the answer. Also, I mentioned Aaron Scott Jr. and Devin Sanchez. Those are two guys that want to push to get on the field, where one of them could be a nickel instead of an outside corner to try to get on the field a little bit faster. I think Scott Jr. is a guy that could be the first of those two to get on the field consistently. But if Jermaine Matthews Jr. does not get it done, especially against Texas, I mean, you talk about their defense, they're going to have Arch Manning. They're going to have a lot of skilled players on the outside that are going to be very, very good. And if Jermaine Matthews Jr. or Igbenogson drops the ball and starts letting guys creep past them and get and consistently catch the ball, you could see a true freshman. You could see Aaron Scott Jr. or even Bryce West come out there and play. I don't know if there's a lockdown corner at all. I think the luxury is you have Caleb Downs, and he can kind of help you out before you make a mistake in the pre-snap communication, which is going to help all these guys out in a big way.
Igbenogson scares me sometimes, and I think he led the nation in PIs, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Like, he's just overly aggressive. So I think teams will attack him. That's the other reason that I think it's important. If you don't have a guy that's just a dude and help him out against somebody, they're trying to get matchups against better competition. Again, Penn State's not beating Ohio State this next year. Go ahead and put that prediction out there. They'll find a way to screw that up. But if they did get another, like, this could be the best. Like, I'm telling you, like Sanchez, I've seen him. Holy cow, is that kid good? And he's not going to start the way it is right now. But most schools, honest to God, even though he's a true freshman, he would. So if they could just add like one more piece, I think, like you're saying, I know that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a veteran. Maybe it's a guy that's in the MAC or something like that just wants more exposure, that grew up a Buckeye. I don't know. I think it would behoove them. But finally, on defense, they have some good players coming up. But this is more like traditional Ohio State 2005 or something, because you didn't have the portal then. Oh, this kid, we need him. Okay, hopefully, we recruited him. He was highly rated. He's been here 2 years. They got a player like that at every spot on defense. You're like, okay, he's like Aaron Scott, a guy they recruited, was heavily thought of, but does he produce? Is there anybody that you're excited about that hasn't played a ton that will keep the Buckeyes from having to dive into the portal? Anybody that you just got a gut feel on?
Kenyatta Jackson Jr.
I like him. He's a great kid too. Great kid.
I think his size, his length, I think he's going to be quicker off the edge than a lot of people expect him to be. I think he's a guy that can play himself into being a future NFL player. Caden Curry's a guy that I've been high on since high school. Now, I had the luxury of watching him a lot when he played high school football, so I saw him playing some of the biggest stages to make some big plays. But he's on the other side out there on the end, and I don't know if he's going to be splitting time with somebody else out there. But I do know he makes plays. No matter if he's in special teams or out there playing defense, any portion of the game, he makes plays. I think up front, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson Jr. are going to be a couple guys people are going to want to know their names, because once they get against Texas and once they get into Big Ten play, you'll realize they're going to make plays over and over and over again. I can't think of another guy that Peyton Pierce. If there's a linebacker, there's a linebacker out there that I think is not really a name right now, didn't play a lot last year, but could be in rotation at linebacker, is Peyton Pierce. I think he can play the mic. He can play the outside backer. It does not matter. I think he is a guy that's going to push Arvo Reese, who played a lot last year in the backup role, to play a whole lot better, or Peyton Pierce is going to jump him and start this year. I think he's that good. I don't know if you've heard this. CJ Hicks is now playing on the edge. He's not playing outside backer anymore.
Oh, really?
So,
I did not know
yes.
that.
So he is in Larry Johnson's room consistently, more in a 2-point stance, outside backers set up at the end of the defensive line. I think he can be scary. But only thing with him is when we saw him play on the edge last year, he wasn't consistent. Now, was it because he was in the linebacker room all week and then playing the edge? I don't know. But with him being with Larry Johnson every single day and getting reps off the edge every single day, he can make his way and play his way into being an NFL draft pick. Because right now, he ain't doing nothing. Even if he plays a little bit of outside backer, I would project him to be a NFL draft pick at the end of the year because he wasn't the best outside backer for Ohio State. That's not a knock against him. I think he's best off the edge, and I'm curious to see what he does against Texas and other teams in the fall.
Well, he'll have a chance. I mean, if you show out against the Horns, they're going to put that on film, my friend. It's
yes,
eye and sky does not lie. So maybe that's the guy that can get the big sack or something against Arch Manning. You never know. Sometimes that's again, guys that you've recruited that, okay, now it's your time. You need to make something happen. We'll see. Speaking of recruiting, the Buckeyes have gotten 2 recent offensive line commitments that are really good. We're going to talk about that next here on the Portal Podcast. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power you through. Whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament, like myself, or squeezing out a little bit of golf after work, or just staying up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever that you need it. For me, staying up watching the basketball tournament. I've done that most of my life. A lot of times people that do that, they need a little pick-me-up in the morning. I'm lucky. I'm a morning person. I need it more in the afternoon, but 5-Hour Energy is something that you can use. If you need something on the go, 5-Hour Energy is a great way to do that too. If you got something going on a little bit later and you needed a nap, 5-Hour Energy might be the way to help you out. So head over to 5hourenergy.com for over 15 flavors to choose from, including blue raspberry, peach mango, and many others. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack and have them delivered right to your door. You need one now? There's a grocery store or convenience store very close to you. Go stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy. 2 offensive linemen here recently have committed to the Ohio State Buckeyes. I love watching O-linemen at the high school level because if I can find good ones, and that's not the easiest task, they usually stand out pretty quick. And I don't really go by the rankings and all that. And both the kids that Ohio State got, one in state and one from Arizona, I liked both. Usually, I'm a pretty picky guy about it, but let's start with the one that's ranked higher. And that's Sam Greer. He's from Archbishop Hoban, 6'6", 6'7", 310 at least. I think he's bigger than that. I saw that listed, and I'm like, that is a big human being. But he is a power player, plays left tackle at Archbishop Hoban. But I just think the way he plays, he could play guard or tackle. I'd be good with it. He's massive. He's wide. I don't know what clothing outfit that he goes with most of the time, but he's got to be selected because most of it probably going to fit him. That is a large human being, but he plays better in space sometimes than he does right at the line. So I liked him a lot. National recruit top 250 by 24/7. But the other kid I actually liked better, Jay, and that's Tucker Smith. He's a kid from just outside of Phoenix. I've not even heard of this high school. Sandra Day O'Connor, whatever that is. I don't know. But tackle is where I think he'll play. I saw one of the services had him listed at guard, and I'm like, this can play tackle all day. Really athletic, great feet, and he's not filled out all the way yet. I think Ohio State got a steal. He's ranked at 3-star on 24/7. I would be happy to take him at Southern Cal, Texas, Florida, anywhere. That's their 3rd offensive lineman they've got. And you and I have had many conversations about Ohio State. Who are they going to get at O-line? You would have, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything about this? And where are we going to get somebody? And I'm like, how does that happen at Ohio State? They've remedied that. Was that the biggest priority in this class for 2026? Because, again, they got 3 in the bank already.
Absolutely. There's no way Ohio State could bring in a new offensive line coach and not make sure that guy is a recruiter. One thing you didn't mention about this O-line, these two guys committing, over the past month, they've had 3 O-line commitments, and it's all under the new offensive line coach. And so he's already coming
Yeah.
in and
He knows
taking it.
he knows the deal, bro.
Yeah, he understands. 2 of them are in-state kids. The other one's Maxwell Riley, the 9th best offensive tackle via 247 Sports. So 3 guys since he's gotten there, and all 3 of them bring something different to the table at a priority position where Ohio State, like you said so well, they've dropped the ball at this position recruiting. And I think part of the issue is they haven't cast a wide enough net. They try to go against get the in-state kids and try to get the guys that are big-time recruits. Well, if you're trying to just focus on the in-state or the region and then try to get the big-name guys, if you're consistently not getting picked by the big-time offensive tackles or offensive linemen, you're left with 4, maybe 3 guys heading into November, and you're like, man, I got to try to figure something out. And you're trying to scratch and claw and put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's an incomplete puzzle. Well, all of a sudden, you have a guy that's coming in right away and making an impact on the O-line recruiting where Ohio State desperately needs to pick things together. One thing I said earlier was that they don't have offensive tackle depth right now. It's not knocking against the guys that are currently on the roster. They just didn't recruit enough. And they didn't go into the portal to try to get the ones that they thought could play right away. Now, they went in and tried to get a Vic Cutler. Didn't work out. Josh Simmons transferred from San Diego State. He's about to make his way into being a first-round draft pick. So you hit on some, you lose on some. But I think Tyler Bowen, the new O-line coach, is casting a wider net and trying to send out more offers, but also have a better handle on what the team needs and how he can quickly make an impact with O-line recruiting, and he's doing that. Brian, we're used to, you and I having conversations in the spring or the summer. Ohio State may have 1 O-line commitment, maybe 2. They have 3 in March already. That's huge.
Yeah, look, the one thing, like John Cooper, people have different opinions about him, but the one thing that he did when he was there, they didn't jack around with O-line.
Sure didn't.
They went and got some of the kids were in state. I get that. In particular, this kid from Sandusky named Orlando Pace, but that's another story. He was solid.
I mean, he was a Heisman finalist too. I mean, he's just like some name.
He was the best player in college football. Yeah. Probably. But anyway, the bottom line is still the same. If you're going to go out and be Ohio State, win the national, you should be able to recruit like this. And it's a good year in state. So they did what they should, but they also, as you noted, they casted a wider net. You find a kid, and again, I like Tucker Smith a lot. I think he's really good. He's just at a high school that I'm like, if I don't know the high school, it's probably newer, but his film is legit. Good for them. They went out and they found somebody they like. They didn't care where he's from. He's just good. You're going to put yourself in a lot better spot because in the portal this spring, we're going to be talking about this for teams all over. We need an offensive tackle. Good luck.
Right.
Those guys don't leave, bro. Mm-mm. We both know they do not leave.
Mm-mm.
What Ohio State got out of the portal in the winter was unbelievable. Getting more than one that's a quality player, they probably spent quite a bit there. That's why I think another reason I think in the spring, they'll probably pull back a little bit unless they get like one guy. But they're already ahead of the curve. So good for Ohio State. Last thought here, Jay. With Jeremiah and that offense, they still got some really talented players. Do you feel like this is a team that they can compete for the title this year, or are they really going to take a major step back? What's your opinion right now if you had to guess? I know it's early, but still.
I won't say a major step back. I don't want to go because, like, to me, a major step back is 9-3 or 8-4. I don't see that, especially with the Big Ten talent. I don't see them going to have 3 or 4 losses. I don't know if they're going to win the Big Ten, though. Let's just start there, Brian. I don't know if this is a Big Ten championship caliber team. They're worthy. They're good enough to make the playoff. They can make the field of 12 or 14, whatever it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
They'll make that field, but they may or may not host the playoff game. I don't know. I have a hard time getting a handle on a quarterback that nobody has seen play in college. So I don't care if it's Sayin or Kean Holds or even something crazy happens and the true freshman starts. I don't know what you're going to get. You have a new offensive play caller. I have no idea what Brian Hartline's going to do with the offense. Everyone's trying to say, oh, he's going to throw the ball more. Based off of what? What makes you think he's going to throw the ball more? Because he's the wide receivers coach? Well, a year ago, they had to make sure they had 2 quality running backs to go deep into the playoff just to even get to the national championship. Maybe he's going to try to run more based off the things he learned from Chip Kelly. Defensively, Brian, they lose 8 of their 11 starters from a national championship winning team. The whole defensive line is about to get drafted. 1 linebacker is about to get drafted. Multiple guys in the secondary are gone. It's not going to be easy to just wake up and fix all of that mess. It's not going to be easy to do that. They could be going into Big Ten play with 1 loss. Could they lose 1 Big Ten game? Absolutely. Could they lose 2? Maybe. I don't see that, though. But if you look at a 10-2 team, yeah, they're going to get in the playoff. But I got a hard time trying to figure out what the defense is going to be. I don't even know what kind of offense they're going to run. If we just start with the offense, I don't know the offensive play style. So I have no idea what to expect from the Buckeyes. I know the talent they have. They have a lot of talent, a lot of top-end talent that people will spend a lot of money to try to get and pull from Columbus, Ohio. But just because you're talented, that doesn't mean you're going to be great. They have the talent to be great. I don't know if they're going to have the chemistry to be great in the fall.
That's kind of where I'm at, too. And that Texas game's big. I think they could lose 3 games because you got Michigan on the road, you got Texas. If you falter anywhere in between there, that would be your 3rd loss, potentially. Now, I think they'll win at least one of the Michigan and Texas game, but stranger things have happened. And like you said, they got so many new pieces. It's really hard to project. Jay, tell everybody where they can find your work.
At Locked On Buckeyes on YouTube or wherever you get your fine podcast, Apple or Spotify, anywhere there. Follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. We're talking Buckeyes football all spring, all summer, 365. It's a football-centered show. A little basketball sprinkled in too, but if you love football and you love the Buckeyes, come check out Locked On Buckeyes.
Absolutely. You can find Locked On the Portal, the same places you can find Locked On Buckeyes, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, wherever you get your pods. Please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon on the Portal Podcast.